This is the Behind Closed Doors podcast, a podcast that talks about real life issues as seen through the lens of a millennial. We are not our circumstances are a part of us. So join me as we unpack these conversations. Who are you?
I am a creator. I am a gift. I am light. I am love.
On today's episode, we feature a storyteller by design, commander of words, wellness entrepreneur and coach. She is the founder of the Africana Woman brand, Z-Pod community, and the host of the award-winning podcast, Africana Woman. Her superpower is creating safe spaces for uncomfortable conversations amongst diverse group of people. Born in Zambia and educated on 3 continents. I'm so excited to have on Behind Closed Doors Chulu. Chulu is such an amazing person. And when I say amazing, you will know as this conversation goes. I love this person so much. I don't think she knows. Chulu, welcome to Behind Closed Doors.
Oh my God. I'm like standing out because I love Behind Closed Doors. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a guest. This is so exciting.
And just having an award-winning podcaster on here is just like, wow. Wow. I wanted to have a conversation that people are scared to have.
Okay.
And you know me and trying those conversations that take people the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
So before we even get into that, I just want you to give us a brief but in-depth background of yourself and where you are now.
Okay. All right. So, my name is Chulu. I live in Zambia. So, and Kabwe, and I have a 15-year-old son. And, I'm one of those typical, millennials who went and did, you studied one thing, but you've never used your degree kind of thing. And it's funny because I loved what I was studying, but I just haven't practiced it, right? And I don't think I ever will. So I studied architecture studies. And when I came out, I think what I actually realized is that, one, I love people. And two, I love to be creative in so many forms. So that has taken up different mediums, different ways that I express myself creatively. I remember when I just finished university, I started a fashion design company. I think I was ahead of my time. But I started a fashion design company. And then after that, I did a baking. I had a baking company with my mom. So we were doing custom design cakes. So, and then that was also very new, where you tell someone like, hey, give me any shape you want or any character, whatever, and we can do it. And that was just like very new on the market then. So that was very exciting. And then we eventually began to specialize in wedding cakes. And then after that, I have pretty much started a wellness brand. And I guess I get to express creativity around creating what the brand looks like. I'm very, very particular. I like beautiful things. So, with the designs of the posters when we have events and things like that, I just love it to have that beautiful, classy feel to it and stuff. So so right now my main focus is Africana Woman, which is a wellness brand, like I mentioned before, and we've got different I guess, programs that people can engage with us. We've got a podcast as well, as Cece mentioned. And we also have a book club, which is so much fun. It's interesting. Someone just posted today that she connected with another person in the book club and found that it was more than a book club, but it was a family. Sweet. Then we also have an accountability group for the visionaries, which I absolutely love. And we also host drinks. So right now, we're looking forward to fresh. And yeah, so there's so much going on and it's so much fun. It's so exciting. A lot of new things, new experiences. And I'm loving the ride.
As you're speaking and I'm listening and I'm like, oh, you do that. Oh, wow. Oh, that. And it's like, that's so much on your plate. And how did you get to a place where you're doing all these things?
So it's been a building block. We certainly, I think when you start something, you don't start with everything at the same time, right? So I even forgot to mention we have a blog.
Oh my goodness.
Right? That was the original Africana Woman. I started the blog in a time when I was on a healing journey. And one of the ways that I really expressed myself is through writing. So there were some ladies that I was in a program with, and they said, hey, you should pursue this. So yeah, I really love to express myself through writing. So they encouraged me to do something with my writing. So I remember that I had started a blog with some friends a few years ago, and I was just like, hey, let me just take that up. And I asked for their blessings. They said yes. So I started Africana Woman as a blog. So from the blog, then we added the podcast. Then from the podcast, we added the visionaries. And then from the visionaries, there was a request to start a book club. So we added the book club. And then I think one of my favorite things is retreat. So, and I always had a dream about doing that. So then we added the retreat. So it's always been progressive. I think maybe about 6 months apart when we do things. And then, not everything happens at the same time. Like we are in the second half of the year and people they need and are tired, so that sort of thing. So it's been like a building block to get to where we are.
So now, Africana Woman, what inspired African women? Because you could have built a brand on anything else, women in general. Why specifically African women?
Do you know what? I feel like African women are the most forgotten demographic out there, okay? Because, if you just look at the things that are available, even if you go and do a search online, right? They'll be talking about Black women, they'll be talking about African American women, but there is this special group that is African women, and we are so underserved, right? I think what happens is we try to fit into different spaces where maybe it's like a bit of us, like, okay, yeah, maybe I'm choose people, you know what I mean? Or maybe let me go and try and fit in this other space, and we're always trying to go out into other spaces. But I wanted to create something that was specifically for African women, because I feel like there's just something magical and special about being an African woman. And I think a lot of times when people say African woman, they think I'm talking about Black people, but that's not true. I think when you come from the continent and, we've been on the continent, you know that we are women of all colors. Right? But we all have this love here. There's a certain way that we talk, vibe that we have, and you just want to go to a space where you can, and no one is going to ask you like, what did you say? I don't understand. You know what I mean? But yeah, I really wanted to create something special for African women because we're so forgotten.
and looking at all your networks and seeing how you've brought all these African women together, was it difficult to kind of create that type of a community? Because also I know that Africans are a bit skeptical sometimes to be part of such things because, like you mentioned, they're the forgotten demographic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
was it difficult to bring such people together?
Yes and no. I think one thing, I think people are definitely interested, but they kind of are interested from a distance. So they'll be following, they'll be watching, but then they're not engaging. That was the difficult part. To say, don't watch from afar. Come. It's okay. Come close. We don't bite. So that was, I think, the more challenging part. But definitely, there's an interest. Sometimes I'll when some Instagram, I'll ask them like, oh, why? Hi, thank you for following. What attracted you here? And the number one answer is I identify as an African woman. So there's definitely that need and desire to have a space like this. But I think, again, it's about showing them that it's a safe space. It's a place they can trust and a space where they can engage and just be themselves authentically, So,
So, I grew up in a single parent home, yeah? I lost my father very early on in life. So my role model, like most children, was my mom. She was a go-getter. She was Miss Independent. She provided and gave us the best life. I mean, we're not rich, but we're very comfortable. And for me, I was like, this is who I want to be. So you grow up and you get thrown into society and there's this reality check to say, you know what, this is not your world. It's a man's world, and you've done all these things. Did you not face resistance when you got into the scene and started doing all these things that you're doing?
I've been asked that question before. Like working in a man's world, and to be honest, I think I'm one of those people who, when I've decided that I want to do something, then there's really nothing that's going to stop me. So I don't even see like the resistance about it's a man's world. Because I'm like, well, first of all, I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to women, So I don't necessarily feel like in my particular case, there's like a resistance because it's like a male-dominated space. But I do believe, for example, let's say if you're going into a career like engineering or I don't know, being a Yango driver, you know what I mean? Where people are like, it's like a guy's space, and I think, you don't have problems. But for me, since I'm specifically just focused on the woman and speaking to the woman, I really don't see any resistance.
That's quite interesting because mostly as women, we have, I think, imposter syndrome because we're like, am I sure I deserve to lead? Am I sure I deserve to be this big in a world where it's not supposed to be me? So now, how would you address imposter syndrome? Or when you started out in this journey, was that something that you also faced?
Yeah. Well, like I mentioned, when I started Africana Woman, I was doing a program. It was a year-long mastermind. And, I'm kind of doing two programs parallel to each other. One was called Mastery and Momentum. And then the other one was called Purpose Platform. And I think in those places, they really did support us in terms of, okay, so you've got this idea, you've got this dream, start doing it. And then when we now start facing those imposter syndromes, the whole community is behind you and they're supporting you and they're, loving on you and saying, no, you can do it, we can do it, that type of thing, right? So I think I was very blessed, especially at the beginning, because something as simple as, let's say, doing Instagram Live, right? That's very daunting. It's very scary. So if I used to go and announce in the group, hey, I'm about to do an Instagram Live. And the people in the community would jump on, not because they're necessarily African women or they're necessarily interested in the content, but they're there to support. You know what I mean? So they would be on there and they'll be like, oh, like all of that kind of support. And I really do feel like they really, really helped me in just pushing past that initial fear. And now I can do it live. And if there's no one who shows up, I don't really care because I know people will come and later. That's all. Like I can talk to myself for probably an hours, and I'll be fine. That sort of thing. But it's just getting past that initial fear. That's where I did receive a lot of support.
And lots of support. I like that because your network is your net worth, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
How did you identify key players in your life to say this is the community that will push me forward?
I think people. There's a saying which is when the student is ready, the teacher appears, right? But I feel like that can be the same for when you are ready to be loved and supported, the people will come to you, okay? And you will know them. You will feel it. You will identify it in your heart and your soul and say, hey, this one is really for me, yeah? So I think I very much... I love the friends that I have, for example, who are not intimidated by like my ambition, and I can go to them and say, hey, I just want this, and they will be there to celebrate and support it. And it's not like a competition. Yes, and then vice versa. They can also share with me, this is what I've done, and I'll be like, yes. And you see them out there, I'll be posting, telling everyone about them and things like that. So, really finding those types of relationships where you're not in competition, but you're really supportive of each other. You're really you're for each other, and you speak life into each other. And I also think that those days that you forget. Like, there are just some days where your emotions are low, your energy is low, and you forget who you are. You know what I mean? But the people, if you've got the right people around you, they will remind you. They'll be like, hey, you did that. You did this. You're amazing. You are a go-getter. You are this, you are that, And then it'll bring the spirits up again. So make sure you just really identify and surround yourself by life-giving people.
As you are pushing all these boundaries and breaking all these barriers and challenging the status quo, right? I don't know how I can phrase this, but what desire is driving you to change, all these things, but then also be respectful to societal traditions or, the constructs that are already existing? How do you work around the already existing structures that have been there for generations and generations?
I believe that our minds are so colonized. And what I mean by that is that even though, these countries lift our borders, they still left a mark on our minds. And as African people, we really don't love ourselves at the core. We that pride, that self-love is really, really right? And for me, I would love to see a world where we as Africans become our own solution and we take control of our resources and are more assertive about the way we engage on the global platform. But in order for us to do that, we first need to decolonize our minds. And one thing that I am trying to do in my own little way is to be an example, and then also to guide people back to really, really loving themselves, right? And I think when we talk about self-love, it's really accepting yourself for who you are, the good and the bad, because sometimes we like to forget the bad. We only want to have the good. And I think when you have that that unconditional love for yourself, I think it begins to reflect in the environment around you, right? And I mean, you know, where we should start seeing a decline in people bleaching their skin, you know, in people's main aspiration to leave the continent, and just go live somewhere else and never come back to this terrible dark continent, you know, those types of narratives. But how can we be our so that we can make this world that we live in the best that it can be, right? So that's it. I don't necessarily talk about this type of thing like directly, because you have to meet people where they are, right? So if somebody is going through, let's say, trauma, or and trauma can come in different things, you know, but you have to meet them where they are, and then you work with them with baby steps, and guiding them to where to a point where they love themselves so deeply that they can really even do what they really want. Because I think a lot of times we also get trapped in this. The way my life is because I'm doing it for the sake of survival. But I would want you to have a life that you are doing because you absolutely love and you're thriving, right? And those come from different places. One is from a place of fear, and the other one is from a place of knowing who you are and whose you are, and trusting that everything will be okay. So it's different starting points. Yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. And, you know, as you're speaking, because my next question was going to be, how then do you foster such conversations that, you know, especially when addressing sensitive or controversial topics? And then I think you mentioned that you meet people where they are. Mm-hmm. And I think, in all honesty, it's, I don't know if maybe frustrating, because you're like, guys, we need to, you know, shift our mindsets. But then, like you said, there's that fear that people have that, okay, what about what's on the other end? What if it's not, what if it's comfortable here? What if it's safer here? And I think I was listening to something and someone mentioned something that we we got freedom, but we're not free. And that got me thinking, and I'm like, wow. And when you look at society now, you're like, are we sure we are quite all right? We have the freedom, but our minds are not free. We are always still operating under, no, things are supposed to work out a certain type of way. What do you think about that?
Oh, I agree. We're certainly not free. I mean, let's just look at our education system, right? The education system we inherited and have not changed, quite frankly, is as Zambian, is the British system, right? And is that really beneficial to us? Because really, they were just creating factory workers, people who are just yes boss, yes one type of people. You know what I mean? And the system does not allow for innovative thinking. You basically go in there, you memorize, and that's what you have to regurgitate on the paper. You know what I mean? But for someone to think outside of the proverbial box isn't a box, but anyway, for someone to think outside the box, for someone to be innovative, for someone to be creative, you have to have a different way of teaching and engaging them. But our education system still is generating factory workers, just one after the other, and then you find that someone gets out into the world and all they want is to get that government job. But how many people get the government job? They're going to it and say, no, there's no jobs and stuff, and they're not thinking about how am I my own solution, and then, even just the things from school. We look at, we've been watching Hollywood for a very long time. And Hollywood is all about glorifying, the US. So the aliens land in the US and the heroes always come from, and it's like, so you don't even see yourself as an ethical person, as someone who can be a hero, as someone who can be a solution, who can come up with a solution, because the narratives that are being repeated and shown to you are about that other people, that other space. So they are wanting to be like, let me go that side because the grass looks greener. So yeah, it's a difficult one. I think a lot of people are not ready for these types of conversations. So it gets very uncomfortable and they get confrontational. Another thing that we have not been taught to do as a society is to have difficult conversations, because what happens is people have a difficult conversation and then now they're enemies, they're at war, they're fighting. No, guys. We can have a difficult conversation, and just because it's a difficult one doesn't mean that we have to now be killing each other at the end of it. We can agree to disagree and then come back and debate on it another time. But there's no reason for people to lift up arms just because someone said something opposing to them, And I think we feel that when it comes to election times, election times are always so tense in Zambia, hey? Or any African country where you're just thinking, oh my God, is this there's just going to be that one little thing which will make things snap and completely change our lives, because people cannot handle having difficult conversations and realizing that it's okay to disagree with somebody else. But let's listen to each other. Let's treat each other with respect and dignity. So it's one of those things which, at a macro level, it's such a big thing to be solved. But for me as an individual, the little that I can do is what I'm going to focus on, right? So I know I can't solve these big problems, but I know that I can also plant a seed of change. And then also in the conversation that we have in Africana Woman, I always say this at the beginning. I say, we may not agree with what somebody says, but please speak to each other with respect, right? And for me, just being able to be that example and then also teach people that it's okay to have difficult conversations and this is how it's done, I think that's very powerful. And, you teach one person, and especially teaching a woman, you're teaching a community.
You're speaking and I'm just like, wow, how does this woman's mind work? Because everything is just pure gold. And, obviously, we see the works that you're doing. The Africana Woman brand is doing so much. And as you're saying, you can't change everything today, but it's starting at that level where you're at and influencing one person who influences the next person. What has been the most challenging thing with breaking these barriers in this journey that you started with Africana Woman?
I think as our society is accustomed to idolizing people. Okay. So, we see somebody is, let's say, a leader in a certain industry or they're an influencer online. Then they start a community and then go into the community. You're going in that community to be connected to that person, right? And that's the way most other organizations are kind of structured. But that's not the goal for me. I don't want people. I know when I started Africana Woman, I think a lot of people kind of see me as the face, which I'm trying to pull back from, because what happened was, for example, if I post something in let's say online, on social media, on a Facebook group and stuff, people would be talking to me instead of talking to each other. And my whole goal for Africana Woman, one of our main priority is community. But if everybody is now wanting to just talk to me and be connected to me, how do we build community that way, right? So another thing I would post, let's say I post in a group and someone will send me a message on the side. And I'm like, no, stop sending me messages on the side. Post in the group, you know what I mean? So that other people can see what you're saying. So I think that is something that I really struggled with at the beginning, to get people to talk to each other, right? So, for example, we started with a Facebook group, and I didn't like that structure. So what I did is I closed the Facebook group and then I started again from scratch. And we started with a WhatsApp group, because I know the WhatsApp group is one, people are already familiar with that, but then you can also see who you're speaking to. You know what I mean? And I think what that has done, it has really changed the dynamics in the community, because now, people are connecting directly with each other. So they'll see things in the WhatsApp group, and then they'll go and start having their side conversations, and suddenly you're seeing pictures of people at a function together. Hey, we met up as Africana women. Hey, we did this, and that's what I want. That is makes me so happy. You have no idea when I see that. And not everything focused around, this is the person started the community. But no, a community is where we are all part and parcel, and everybody gets to interact with each other. Yeah.
With everything that you know now and the experience you've had, what do you think are the 3 most important conversations that you feel like you actively need to keep talking about?
That's a good question. Three things that we actually need to be talking about. Okay, so I think the first one is around trauma and healing. So many of us are in survival mode and we don't even realize it. And it only becomes very clear to us that when something kind of like stops us in our tracks, and usually that something is a health scare, or something very something that's there to get attention, could be an accident, could be something, right? And it's really just it's like a wake up call to say, hey, I need you to slow down. I need you to rethink the way that you are living, and are you actually living? Because I think a lot of times most of us are just existing. We are kind of just going through life in like an automatic, robotic form. At the same time, we go to work, and then we come back, we watch a movie, we sleep, we start the process again. Very robotic. But I know that you are meant for more and there's greatness in you, but you have to snap out of that mode of just existing and surviving. So I think that's something that we definitely need to keep talking about. I think this one irritates me. I think we need to get comfortable with talking about money, especially as women. A lot of times we're not necessarily taught how to interact with money, right? We kind of learn how to interact by observing as children, because kids are very observant, right? And then we emulate that when we're adults. So they tell us, no, go to school, and then when you go to school, that's the key to success. And then you go to school, you are making a lot of money, but you're living hand to mouth. And you're trying to figure out, why is this happening? And it's very jarring that it's almost like the success story that you were told is a lie. It's like, I've got so much debt, I'm barely surviving and things like that. And you need to understand, because you went to school, you got a job, but you're still struggling. So make it make sense. So I think we really need to get comfortable with just talking about money in general. We should be talking about our money blueprint. We need to be talking about the psychology of money. We need to be talking about how to multiply money and be that good steward. All of those things. But oftentimes, you grow up in a home where it's like, it's rude to talk about money. Don't say that, So you grow up and it's very important to have that conversation. But I think it's very important. A third one, I think we need to be talking about the types, the men that we are raising. Because those men grow up to marry someone's daughter. And I was reading, and there was a post, I think, on social media that was talking about how the men of our generation are very confused because they want to sit at home and then the woman is the one that's making all the money. But at the same time, they want to be treated with respect as the head of the household, but they're not really doing anything, you know? I wish I could find it. I'll find it and I'll say it to you, just like you. But I think our men are it's like they're broken, but at the same time they are they have no guidance. They have no guidance. As women, socially, even if people say no, the girl child is not educated. Let's be honest. There are two types of education, right? There's the formal education, the one which we know we're good, but then there's also an informal education where you're being taught how to manage a household in your child, right? In your home. So you're being taught how to manage your household, how to be economic with your resources. You're being taught how to be innovative when the problems come up. Women get so much education about how to be hustlers, but the boys are left behind. There's no proper education, no proper informal education when they're growing up. There's no education when it's time to get married. And then you throw them into a marriage and hey, go and be the head of this house. But they've never done anything like that in terms of, being able to manage a household. But to the deep water. And I think there's so much more that we can be doing as women because we are the ones that are raising them. We need to do so much more. We need to show them what respecting a woman really means, and even just having that conversation around consent, especially in sexual matters. I think, there's so many conversations and so many things that we need to be doing and having conversation and really being intentional about the way that we raise our boys. Because we've really got, I think, more like two lost generations of men.
As you're speaking and I'm listening to you and I'm like, I keep telling myself, Cece, we need to have these conversations. You made this platform to speak about conversations that people are hiding behind closed doors. But then a part of me is like, oh my God, why should it be me? And then another part is like, but then why did you start the platform to have these conversations? And you are so right. One thing about trauma, if not checked, it sets out the trajectory of your life. And you start wondering why you behave a certain type of way. Mm-hmm. And then there's money. Funny enough, today I was having a conversation with someone and they're like, oh no, avoid sensitive conversations like money because people don't want to talk about the money that they earn. And I'm like, okay, but then if we're not having these conversations, how are we helping each other? Mm-hmm. And like you say, people are making so much money, but they're living hand to mouth. Why? Because these conversations are not being had. These conversations are things that people don't think need to be had, but they do need to be had. And it's very impressive that we have people like you and all these other people who are doing such great work to say, you know what, be it as it may, no matter the backlash, no matter the resistance, we will talk about these things. We will have these hard conversations. And it's really admirable to see because people like me then start following in that path to say, you know what, if Chulu can do it, why can't Cece do it too?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know it's a hard, eh? Because first of all, you also are comfortable, you know. I remember I did a talk about sexuality, and I even started at the beginning. I said, guys, you know, this. I know I'm the host, I'm the one that brought this, but it's actually a very uncomfortable conversation for me too. But I'm willing to have it because it's necessary. So it's not, you know, as somebody, like you're saying, Cece, as somebody who has a platform where we can have such conversation, just remember, it's not always going to be comfortable, but you come out better at it.
Okay. In conclusion, who have you become?
That's a good one. I think in 2019 and 2020, I realized that I didn't have a voice. I had lost my voice in the sense that I was too afraid that people would judge me and kind of blacklist me because of my history, you know. But I think at this stage, I've become somebody who, like, I know who I am, and I'm not afraid to be me. A funny example: yesterday, a mutual friend, Christabel, she was celebrating her 5th birthday. So it was an 80s party, 80s, 90s party, like a birthday party. And there was Gesh Groove playing, you know, like it was a vibe. And then we get there. So, okay, first of all, I didn't have like an outfit per se. So I just kind of made something up. And then I have a very natural look as well. You know, I don't usually wear makeup. I've got short hair and stuff like that. So we get there and the music was so good. Like, oh my God, this is so much fun. But no one was dancing. And I just couldn't figure it out. No, me and my friend, let's go. That's how we went. And we became the team dance. And, you know, you look around and you can see, you know, the people are all, you know, they've dressed up and they picked up and they're watching and you can see they want to join. But they're not joining. But I think it's mostly because, you know, a lot of times we get so afraid about, oh my God, what is someone going to say? Are they going to laugh at me if I dance this way? Or maybe, you know, yeah, also too worried about, oh, my makeup will drip, I'll become sweaty, and then, oh, that guy will pass me by. But, you know, honestly, I just don't care about things like that. For me, I'm at a point where I want to live and just really experience life. I will have a fun time. I will, you know, I will sing. I'll be laughing, and people will just be like, "But who is this person?" And I think it's really just comes down to just knowing who I am and knowing whose I am and just enjoying life for what it is and not worrying about what others will think or say. I really don't care.
Chulu. You're amazing. You know what? We're going to go on. We need to love and let you go. Where do people find you? How do people support you? How do people connect with you and join your community?
Yes, guys, you need to join Africana Woman because if you have not joined, it's like, oh, you're missing, friend. So you know what? We're so easy to find. Just look for Africana Woman. So there's an A at the end of African. Africana Woman. So it's africanawoman.com. That's the website. When you go onto all socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, follow us on LinkedIn. Just search Africana Woman and it will come up. So our podcast, our award-winning podcast, is found on all major podcast platforms. So, just search in your app and you will find it. But basically, if you just put Africana Woman, try it. Yeah, very easy.
Thank you so much, Chulu, for coming to Behind Closed Doors. This has been such an honor. This has been so beautiful. The conversation has been so amazing. Thank you so much.
First of all, can I just say something? Cece, I am so proud of you. I think even just from the time we met, I've been watching you and watching you grow. I absolutely love the podcast. I'm such a fan. So this is such a big honor for me to be a guest here. But more than anything, I am so grateful for the friendships that we have and are growing. And I'm just so proud and happy that you're in my life. I know I push you out of your company. And I remember the first Zoom and you're like, she keep calling my name. But I love you so much, and I'm so proud of you, and I'm so proud of you coming. So, yeah, keep at it.
Thank you for joining me on Behind Closed Doors podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, please share it with a friend. Like, subscribe, and most importantly, please leave us a review on any platform that you may be listening to us from. For now, goodbye, darling. Till next time.